Hello everyone, and welcome to this tutorial on Tableau for data science. We're going to cover a few basic features of Tableau and how I use it for data science and how it can kind of fit into your workflow. Here's an example of a data science workflow. We have, in this example, 6 different components, and this is going to be different, depending on what type of environment you're working in, but generally you're going to have the data collection, data exploration, sort of the data wrangling, data munging stage where you have to pull everything together and clean it for modeling. And then the next step would be modeling, validation, and then reporting. So the way I use Tableau primarily is in the exploration phase and then in the reporting phase. So exploration, I want to basically be able to look at the data. Once I collect it, I want to be able to look at the different variables that exist. I want to see, how the data is distributed, for example, for each variable. I want to see if there's any outliers or anything like that I want to kick out from the modeling. Because if you feed bad data into this model, you're going to get some, you're just garbage in, garbage out. So being able to explore the data, I find is really helpful. And sometimes that's really all you need to know if you should move forward or not. If you're trying to look to see if there's some kind of a relationship between variables. Sometimes a quick exploration in Tableau, a nice visual will help give you that. And then also on the reporting side, so once you've built your model, you validated it, and you want to be able to share your results with others, Tableau is also ideal for that. They have great reporting tools. It doesn't matter really what kind of organization you're in. You can pass, if you have Tableau server or not, you can pass your workbooks on to others so that they can view them as well. So what is Tableau? So we kind of covered it briefly in the last slide, but it's just a business intelligence / data visualization tool that allows you to make sense of your data. Really by looking at it, right? I mean, sometimes we're looking at millions of rows of data. I mean, you could check maybe the first 100 or first few thousand and look at the data, but that's really not efficient, and it's really not feasible these days to be able to just look at the data and figure out what's going on. With big data, and there's millions, tens of millions of rows, billions of rows potentially, and being able to throw this stuff quickly into a tool like Tableau and look at it really helps a lot. So here you have Tableau desktop and then the server version. So we're going to be using the desktop version today, specifically Tableau Public, which is free. You can download it for free from their website. And that's just the software that you download to your computer. And then the server version actually is within the browser. You can create charts and dashboards and then upload that to the server for consumption throughout your organization. So the interface here for Tableau Desktop is really just drag and drop. It reminds me of a pivot table in Excel. So you drag the columns and rows around to get what you want. And the way that this works is these are the fields here, and it's broken down into dimensions and measures. So a dimension, I think of a dimension as basically a category or a categorical variable. And then a measure is a numerical value. So it could be the number of records, it could be any number of things. And then here you have a filter. You can apply a filter here. And I'll show you how to use this section later, the filter and the mark section. But moving over here, here's where you placed your columns and rows. So if I want to basically show in column form, I want to be able to, let's just say, pull in current status here to the columns and then number of records to the row, then it would give me the current status categories along the x-axis and then the volumes for that category along the y-axis here. So we're going to go over this with the live demo here, but just want to give you a brief introduction to the interface and how it's set up. And this is the end result. Once you're able to make a few charts, you could pull it together and make a dashboard like this, for example. So now we're going to go ahead and download Tableau Public. I've just Googled Tableau Public here. And you're going to have to put in your email address here to download the app. Go ahead and put mine in there and download it. It may take a while, depending on your internet speed, but it's generally pretty quick. So go ahead and install that on your computer. I'm going to fast forward the video here so that you don't have to watch this entire install, but feel free to pause the video and hit play again when you're ready to go. Okay, so now I've downloaded Tableau Public. I have the shortcut here was installed on my desktop. And here we needed to connect to a file. So it gives you several options here: Excel, text, JSON, Access, PDF, spatial, or statistical file. And the difference between the Tableau Public version and the Tableau Desktop, which is the paid version, it's about $850, is that you're limited to just a handful of inputs here, just a handful of file types. The desktop version really has more options here, and you can connect to a server like Azure or any sort of cloud environment, so AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, and pull your data in directly from there here. So we need to go ahead and get our data set, and the data set I'm going to use for this tutorial is the Titanic data set from Kaggle. And I'll include links to Tableau Public and this data set in the video description. You'll just click on that, and you'll probably have to sign up if you don't have a Kaggle account already. And basically what this is Kaggle is essentially just sort of the online Olympics for data nerds. You have competitions for machine learning, deep learning models. Companies can actually post their data sets on Kaggle and have basically the best data scientists in the world compete to build the best model, and the winner can actually earn money. So it's pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and I've already got an account, so I'm going to sign in here. And once you're logged in, you can go to the data tab here, and then we're going to actually use train.csv. So we'll go ahead and download that. I'm just going to go ahead and move that to my desktop. And now we're going to connect to that CSV file. So it looks like an Excel file, but it's really a flat CSV file. Test 1. So we're going to use text file input here. Navigate to the desktop, pull that in. And once you open Tableau Public and import your data set, it's basically just going to show you all of the data fields that exist. And you may not know what those are. So passenger ID, survived, passenger class, name, example, for example. So Kaggle actually has a data dictionary here on the dataset page. So survival is a categorical variable, 1 standing for yes, 2 meaning no, that they didn't survive. Passenger class is the ticket class, so first, second, third class. Sex is the gender, male or female. Age in years, number of siblings, parents, children above the Titanic for the following variables, and then ticket number, fare, cabin number. So the cabin number could be indicative of where they were located on the ship, and then embarked is their port of embarkation. So just looking at this data dictionary, you can kind of get a feel for which variables might be useful and which variables may not be useful at all. So survival obviously is very important. We want to look at the correlation between these variables, these other variables, and whether or not the passenger survived. So now we're going to go back to Tableau. Passenger ID, that's going to be probably not very useful. Survived, that's going to be very important. Passenger class. Passenger name is not going to be very important. The ticket number is unlikely to be significant. Fare, that's how much they paid. Cabin number and embarked. So you can see we have all of these columns here, and you can always reference the data dictionary. So we're going to go ahead and click on sheet 1 at the bottom. And you can look how Tableau automatically pulls in these different variables. So it makes a determination based on the type of data being pulled in, whether it should be a dimension or a measure. So in this class, in this example, we're going to really just want to look at the number of records and how the number of records relate to these different categories and whether the passengers survive. So we're going to actually go ahead and make all of these a dimension. So for age to become a dimension, we may put that into different bins. So if I want to do that automatically, for example, if I want to choose an age range, let me go ahead and give an example here. If I want to show this going down, you can see here that it's just a measure here, so it's adding up all the ages. But what I really want to see is, is there sort of a correlation between the age and whether or not the person survived? So we actually want to create a measure based on this age measure. Create a dimension, based on this age measure. And we can do that automatically by creating bins. So we can call it age bin, and the size of the bin is basically the number of years between each bucket. We'll just do 10 years. And if we pull that in there, you see we have a null value. We'll go ahead and pull in the number of records and then circle back to that null. So here we go. Now we have a distribution of all passengers on the Titanic. We're going to go ahead and pull out the null here. And it's very important to note that when I pull this over, I'm not just clicking on it and pulling it over. I'm hitting on a PC Control. On a Mac, you would use the command button and then left click at the same time and pulling this field over to the filters bar. And if I uncheck the null value there, apply, and then OK, that gives me the distribution without the null values. So this is great, but I want to have some context here by adding percentages. So if I take number of records here again and pull it up to the rows bar and then hit this down arrow here, and you basically have this drop down and then quick table calculation and then percent of total. Okay, so now what that did is we have the volumes here above and then the percent of total below. But I really don't have any labels, so I need to add the labels here so this makes sense. In the marks bar, this basically allows you to change the coloring, the labels, the size of your chart, and you have in this example, you have 3 sections. You have all, this section, which is the summation of all of the records, and then this bottom one represents basically the percent of total. So for the second one, we want to go ahead and pull in the labels here to add the labels, the column labels to each bar. So I'm going to hit Control on my PC, Command on a Mac, and then left click, hold those together, and then drag it over to the labels box. And you can see that it adds the labels there. We want to do the same thing now, but for the bottom section and the percent of total. Control, left click, hold, and then move it down to the labels section. And you can see now on top we have the volumes and then the percentage of the total number of records below. So this is great, but what it really doesn't give us is whether we want to know if age was an influencing variable on whether or not the passenger survived. So we're going to use the survived variable here, and it's a measure. Tableau treated that as a measure when it pulled it in to the data set, but we really want to treat that as a categorical variable, so we want to convert it from a measure to a dimension. And the way you do that is you hover over the variable, and click down here, and then convert to dimension. So now that's a dimension. It moves up from measures up to the dimension section. And we want to color these bars based on whether the passenger survived or not. So I'm going to hold down Control and then left click on my PC, Command left click on the Mac in order to drag this field over. But I want to apply that color to both sections. So I'm going to click on the All Marks box here, and then click on it, Control, left click, hold, and then drag that over to color. And then you can see this legend pops up over here on the right. And what that represents is if it's orange, then that represents a survivor, the survivor portion of the population, and blue is the non-survivor population. So you can see what the distribution looks like here in terms of the total number of records by age bin, and then you can compare, each ratio, the percentage, each age bucket to see if that age grouping had a disproportionate survival rate relative to all of the passengers. So this is great. We're going to rename this tab. So I just double clicked here on the sheet, and we'll call it age. Okay. And now the good part is that we've already built this out, so we don't have to redo this for every variable. So I'm going to right click here and then duplicate. And so what I'm going to do now is just swap out age for another variable. So in this case, we're going to use passenger class. So I want to get rid of age bin. So what I did to get rid of that is I just clicked on it, left clicked, no control or command button, and then just dragged it below. And that that removed it from the filter. And I can do the same thing here, just drag it away. And here we're just stuck with, left with these, the summations of each category here. So now I want to add passenger class. This also was treated as a measure, so we want to convert that to a dimension. Drag that over. We only have 3 classes here. I can drag this over, this chart, to expand it so that it makes more sense. We do not have any null values here, which is great. And you can see that it automatically populates everything, so that's great. We can change the name here to P class to represent passenger class. Duplicate that. And parents of children, let's look at that. Number of parents, children aboard the Titanic. Number of siblings, spouses aboard the Titanic. We're going to look at sibling spouses. We'll convert that to a dimension. Swap that out. There we go. Rename this sibling spouse. And I'm going to create one more chart, one more sheet, and it's basically going to be whether or not they survived, just to get a feel for, out of all of the passengers, how many survived. So I'm going to pull over the survived variable here, and then number of records. And this does not look very nice, right? So we can actually change the chart type over here. If you click on Show Me, over here in the top right corner, I'm going to actually just create a pie chart. I feel like that makes a lot of sense for this type of information. You know, it's going to be one or the other. They survived or they didn't survive, and I can drag that out to make it a little bit bigger. And when you click on the pie chart option here, it automatically adds these labels. And what I can do in order to add the labels to the visual itself is Control left click and drag that up to the label, Command left click if you're on a Mac, and then you can add. Okay, so that worked. Now I want to add survived. The 1 and the 0. So 1 represents a survivor, 0 represents a non-survivor. We'll name that sheet survived. Okay, so now we have 4 sheets. We have age, passenger class, sibling, spouse, and survived. And that's great. We can actually use this information to create a dashboard in Tableau, and I'm going to get to that in a second, but what I want to cover very quickly is how to create your own measure, okay? So I'm going to use age for this. I'm going to, instead of using the bins, create a calculated field. We'll call it custom age bins. We're going to say if age is less than or equal to 10, then 0 to 10, else if age greater than 10 and age less than or equal to, let's just say 20, then 11 to 20. Else if, you get the idea. I'm not going to do this for every age bucket. We'll just lump everybody else in over 20. We'll just put them in 20 plus, so they're 20 years plus. And then if I add the end there, I've got an else if and an else, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the else if, and so then I have an else, which will be the catch-all at the end if it doesn't fall within one of these buckets, and then the end of the statement. Apply. And now I'm going to duplicate the age tab for this example and swap out age bin for my custom age group. Custom age bin. So now you can see it's 0 through 10, 11 through 20, 20 plus. And you know, we can use the bin function to do that really quickly. I think the point of that exercise was to show you how to create a calculated field. So I really don't need that anymore, so I'm going to delete it. So now we want to take these sheets that we've created and we want to make a dashboard, okay? So to do that, you can see these 3 tabs here below with the little chart there, and then the 4 boxes, and then what's called a story. We want to click on the dashboard button, the new dashboard button. Okay, so what this does is creates a blank canvas for us to create a dashboard. And this thing always, for whatever reason, the size is always wrong. So I just change it. You click on this little down arrow here and then the other one right below it and choose automatic, and it expands it to fit your screen. And then we just double click each of these sheets. So age, class, sibling, survived. Okay. That was really fast, really easy to kind of pull this stuff together and add it to a dashboard. And I don't like this number of records thing over here. I can click on it and check, hit the X and it will remove it. And let's say I want to have survived up here in the top section. I can move that around. You can drag and drop these sections to fit your needs. There we go. Let's say I want to expand this some, you can actually just hover your mouse out a little ways and drag that so that it stands out a little bit more. And you can change the colors here. So I can change the survived or non-survived. I want to change that to green to change the 1 to green to represent that they survived, and then the 0 to red. I could do that here and it will change all of them. There you go. Some nice Christmas colors. But we can drag this over as well to make it fit more symmetrical, and then increase the size of this as well and reposition it. So we just, in a matter of minutes, were able to create sheets and then a dashboard. And yeah, that's really fantastic. All of these other tools that you could use, like Click or D3 or I don't know, it takes a while. You got to know how to code in those software programs in order to make the visualizations, and it's just a pain. So the thing I like about Tableau is it's really easy. I compare it to like an iPhone, where a child can basically pick up an iPhone and immediately start using it. It's that intuitive. Tableau is that way for visualization. It's really that simple. You just literally drag and drop until you get what you want. So I really actually don't like these colors, especially the red. Maybe we'll just add the blue back. Okay, that's a little bit better. But anyway, we only dealt with a few of these variables here. You can get a feel for how many people survived. It looks like, and we could actually add the percentages here as well. But it looks like most people did not survive, so it's really sad. And you can look at this chart here and say, out of the people that did survive, it looks like if they were between the ages of 20 and 30, you had a better success rate there. And for the passenger classes, it looks like if you were, in the first class, you had a better shot, 15% versus, less than 10% here, and then 13% here. And siblings and spouses, those that had, fewer siblings and spouses, they survived at a higher rate, which is obviously pretty sad, but this really kind of brings to life the data. We all know what happened with the Titanic, and if we were to just look at this data here in the data source, just looking at this, there's only 891 rows. You might be able to even look at this and sort of pick up some trends, but what if that number was 8 million rows, right? There's no way you could go through that data. And honestly, there's no way you could get this data into Excel. I know Excel's gotten better, but just the expedience with which you can pull data in and look at it, I'm not sure that you could do that with any other software that's available. And then quickly create these sheets and then dashboards. And thanks for watching.